Alright guys, today I have something a little different. I had a Commodore 64 sitting here that I wanted to put some software on, so I went looking for ways of putting things on the disk drive, and I came across this Diskbuddy64 by Stefan Wagner. Unfortunately, he wasn't selling these parts. The good news though is he had this project open sourced. He had everything on his GitHub from the files to the part lists, and so I took all the files, part list, sent out some boards to PCBWay, ordered all my parts, and I now build these. And I sell them on Tindy just to cover the cost. It was a slight bit more to make a bunch than it was to build one. So I'm building a bunch and just kind of selling these to cover the cost. As you can see here, here's his GitHub and his easy idea and everything. All credit goes to him for the designs and for the idea of this. I simply build these as a side project. So today I'm going to assemble one of these kind of live. These aren't very big. They're seeing if I had anything here for scale, but I don't really. They're not terribly huge. And on the flip side here, we've got a few surface mount parts, USB port, a CH3040N, a switch, and a teensy AVR, and then a big plug to interface to the Commodore 64. So I'm just going to do this just kind of on the fly, just so someone can see how this is kind of all put together. Since these are all surface mount parts, I usually start with these smaller pieces here first to kind of get them out of the way, and then I'll move to these bigger chips, and then I'll do the USB port, and then I do the big DIN connector last, because it'd be just this giant bulk of a mess if I try to work around that. So I typically will tin one side of this and then sit and place my components on there. So I'm going to do that now. I currently use a pine seal soldering iron, which has been really quite nice, to be honest. It's worked really well. So I just tin these sides so that I can come back and tack. That one doesn't want to tack. There we go. So I can tack one side of my component. Doesn't want to go either. To the board, and then come back and finish off. Wow, it does not like my soldering iron today. That doesn't help. My iron's not tinned very well. So there we go. So they're all tinned up. And the first piece I'm going to do, just because I have it out, is the LED. Now, these things are super tiny, as you can see here. So I'm going to try to hold this up to the microscope so you can see the orientation of this. Wrong way. Okay, so as you can see here, there's a green line and a black line. The green line's on the left, the black line's on the right. So for my project, I want to pay attention to this green line. So if we focus back down to here, the green line goes with the arrow. So place that in there. Move my light around a bit. So I will typically just take this kind of center it over the pad and tin it in there. And you can see it's in there. I'm gonna finish tacking this one in just so it's done and out of the way. And the other components I kind of have to get out of little bags. But I will come here. Wow, I'm doing great today. Oh, jeez. doesn't like this tip. Wipe that off. Okay, so I've tacked that on nice and good. So we can see it's on there. And then I will come back and let's flip this around. So I'm going to do my 100 nanofarad capacitors here. So I've got a whole strip of these. These are silly cheap. They're like 0.2 of a cent each. And so I just buy a whole bunch at a time because it cost me like $1 for all these. So there's that out there. And I'm going to do the same thing with these as I did with the LED. Is I'm just going to take one and tack in one side onto one of these hundreds. Just like that. Perfect. These lights are great. The angle, there we go, that's not bad. So we got 100, 100, 100, and again another 100. Sometimes they like to float, so I will push on it. Just make sure it's in there nice. And it's in there. Cool. All right. Let's do my 10 microfarad here. So again, we just got a strip here. Pop that out. I keep these in the bags. I need to find a better way of kind of organizing them so that I can just kind of pick them out of like a bin or something, but they are so small that it might not work so well. Yep. Blink. Well, that one went flying. I do not see it. So let's get a new one. Since, you know, dime a dozen is a literal term here on these. There we go. Okay. Try not to get it too close to that left pad because otherwise there's not much to solder to. Okay, that one's on there as well. This one's floating a bit. It's easier to see with the naked eye. Okay, that's on there. And now we can get our two resistors that we need. So it looks like I trimmed this one off. Okay, two resistors. Now obviously these have a top and a bottom. It doesn't matter, but we're going to put them top up just so they look nicer. And I've only tinned one of them. I didn't do the other. For some reason, my stuff is always upside down when it lands on the plate. There we go. Okay. There's the one side, and let's hurry and tin this other side while we're at it. So we can do both. all the right direction this time. Okay, it's in there nice and flat. Perfect. So I'm going to flip this around. I'll finish soldering each side, and then all those little components will be done. Just a little tap and go. Don't need a ton, just enough to keep them on there. Oh, we've already done the LED. Okay, cool. Excellent. So they're all on there. Nothing's coming off. All right. So I already started tinning the CH340N up at the top. So let's find which one our CH340N is. That one. Okay. And then if you'll notice, we do have a dot right here, which will coordinate with the dot on the chip itself. So let's stick that there. Let's get a little bit of flux going on. Touched a cotton swab with my flux, now it's all fuzzy. Okay, so let's place that in place. These aren't too bad because you can kind of just solder them in place like this. So I tinned one pad already, and that'll kind of be our pad we're going to anchor with. See, I've already messed it up. Okay, so now that we've got that in place, we can load up the soldering iron. Come back here and tap and go. So it's not perfectly centered, but it's going to be okay. Gotta make sure to get those pads down there. Excellent. Well, not so excellent. It's floating a bit. So let's see if we can get that. That's why that last one's not going down. All right, much better. Excellent. All right, so we got this should be the AT Tiny chip. So T412 AVR, and it's a little hard to see, but there's your dot right there. And there's the dot up in this corner. So let's put some flux on here. Flux just makes it flow so nice. Look how nice that placed on there. So let's just load up our soldering iron again. And we're going to kind of just touch a bunch of ones like that. And they just go on so nice. And then the same deal for here. Get this last pin. I don't think this is the tip I normally use because this being a little more painful than normal. There we go. So all the pins are on there. It's not lifted or anything. Okay. Let's move to the switch. The switch is it's not polarized or anything, so it doesn't matter which direction I put it on, because it's just going to switch between two states regardless of direction. Let's put some over here just for fun. So, just like the others, just kind of line the switch up. And we'll tack it on. One, two, three. Looks great. Flip around. One, two, three. Looks great. All right, that is all the main components, and all we got left is this USB port. So this one's probably the hardest piece out of all of them, because it's just so tiny, and the angle of the pins. Now I do need to clean out, because I filled that right there with solder. So I do need to clean that out a little bit. So this will go in. Stick this on here. This gets more flux just for good measure. Make sure everything sticks well. And now our port will sit right where it should, right in those little holes. Now this one's a little harder to see because of the angle. But you can see that it's got, when I move it around, you can see there's little pins. And so we try to get those pins as much on there as we can. Unfortunately, I can't angle this a lot. Is that gonna work? No. Okay, so same idea, except we're going to attack it in this direction. So let's tin up our soldering iron. And we're going to tap each. Whoosh. I think I'd never soldered before. What is this called? Stage fright or something? Okay, so got one pin, 2 pins. Okay, all the pins are in. Let's angle this and have a look. I'm off kilter because, well, this is a video I'm doing, so therefore everything's off kilter. But let's see if we can get this flat again. And it's hard to see on the microscope where everything is. Okay. Okay, well, it's flat now, but I think I've bridged a pin or two in here. So let's just pull that. Yeah. Okay. So it is flat. So we can see kind of in this shot here, it's flat. So at this point, I get out my handy dandy toothbrush and I do a little cleaning. Get that flux off there. And then I will do the bottom side of that USB port when I do the DIN plug. Yeah, it just cleans up nice. Everything's shiny and on there. Switch works. Cool. Let's put this away for a second. And then we'll flip this over. Now the first thing I do is take care of the USB port so it doesn't fall off, because that'd be bad. So just load up some solder there on the legs. Just for some structural support is all. Perfect. Still looks good on that side. Okay, we got the port in. So next step is to get this big DIN port. They do line up somewhat in these holes here. Sometimes the legs go squampus, but it will eventually go in. And it's got a couple legs in the front that kind of go in to lock it. These things are notoriously bad for not wanting to fit. Legs all over the place. But there we go. So let's refocus for this one. And this one's pretty straightforward. Just anchor all these pins in. And I typically just go like this to get the flux on it, since they're through-hole components. Oh, dang it. Okay. I really should get some thicker solder. I use really thin solder because I work with lots of little pieces, and then I have to do these bigger pieces and it takes a ton of it. Just doing a couple different spots so that it anchors it fairly well. Gosh, I feel like amateur hour. Like nothing's going right. Okay, and we got all our leg soldered up. This one here could use just a tad more. Oh, one more. Can't leave this one out. Awesome. And that's all done. And so we're just gonna give it a scrub over as well. And this thing is soldered together. We're not done yet because at this point it doesn't actually do anything. So we've got to program it. So I will do that next. I'll drop over to a screen and show how it's all programmed. Okay, here over on the computer, I have the Diskbuddy64 INO file that I got off Stefan's GitHub. I've set up all the proper dependencies. And at this point, we're just going to flash this with the firmware, basically all this, to the device. And so on this one, you have to flash it with a bootloader. Let's see. I haven't done this in a little bit, but wow, I'm terrible at this. So we set the board as ATtiny because that's what it is. We want it to do USB serial. That's probably why it's not showing up. And then we set the serial UDP-PI to our correct baud rate. And then, like I said, we got to upload it right here. Upload using programmer. So we click this. And by the way, we need their switch to be in UDP-PI mode. And then done uploading. And that is the end of uploading. And at this point, we flick that switch back to UART. And it is ready to go. And we can use that to read a Commodore 64 disk. That's all I got. The rest of it is with a giant Commodore, and that's out of the scope of the video right here. I thank you for watching, and I will see you for my next project.